Welcome to another edition of Pants Optional, with Pop Cult HQ's Zoom interview segment where we chat with comic book creators, talk about their latest projects, and get the lowdown from the waist up. I'm Jason Bennett, Chief Editor of Pop Cult HQ. Today we have a special Kickstarter Spotlight edition of Pants Optional. I'm joined by the creator and writer of the series Duplicant, which has seen its first 3 issues successfully funded and ultimately picked up by Second Sight Publishing. She's returning to the crowdfunding platform with issue 4 on February 2nd. Please welcome the talented Karla Nappi. Karla, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Okay, well, hey, let's talk about Duplicant. I read the first 3 issues and I'm all caught up.
Awesome.
For those new to Duplicant, can you just give a brief kind of rundown on the kind of the theme and what your story's all about?
Yeah, so the story is set in the future and it focuses on the one man who offers hope during a pandemic named Matt Travers. He created these duplicate organs, and so it's focusing on his journey and how he came up with something that was meant to be good for everyone and helpful, and how it's been twisted into something ultimately harmful, and that it's being used in ways that he doesn't even realize at first. And so this is his journey to understand and try to fix what's been done with his tech.
Yeah, and it's a crazy trippy story. I
Thank you.
related a lot to it, and and it's funny that you mentioned that. How it's all focused on him. One of the things I really enjoyed about your title is that dynamic of how advancements in modern medicine, though initially intended to benefit mankind, can be abused or twisted or used in such a way that the developer never intended, and the kind of fallout from that. And in the case with your series, it's you see the rise of merchandise on the black market, or organs being harvested, or the indentured servitude that has to come from people who can't afford a procedure like that. It's kind of a real. Not only is it what it's affecting the world in general, but also this character's struggle with having to fight his creation being abused like that. Would that be accurate?
Yeah, I would say that's very accurate. And for him, it's also got this personal aspect to it. I don't think it's a big spoiler to give away that one of Matt's big things that promote him to do this is the loss of his family to the pandemic. So it's something he was already working on to try to figure out a way to help humanity during the pandemic, but he's got this extra drive behind him now because he's lost his entire family.
Yeah, and you feel that loss, and yeah, there were some scenes. I think it was in issue 3 too, with uh, his family and being kind of haunted by that, and even though this is set in a pandemic, and it's a little different scenario, um, there are some eerie parallels to what we're kind of currently experiencing now.
Very eerie.
Um, though yours is based on organ failure among humanity, and the scientist who has developed duplicate organs by ways of technology to overcome this medical emergency. Has anything played out in mankind's current pandemic that lends itself in some way to your storytelling or the direction of Duplicant?
Well, what's interesting is I came up with this story, I want to say in 2011 is when I initially came up with the story, and it was a
Mm.
pilot script, and I developed it into a comic book series from that. So the first 5 issues were already arced out, and the page by page breakdowns were already finished before this pandemic even started. The first 2 issues were already completely done, like art, lettering, everything. And then while we were fundraising issue 1 and 2, that's when the pandemic hit, which was wild because all of a sudden real life was intersecting with what I had created. So when I
Right.
wrote issue 3, when I was adapting my page by page breakdown, that was in March. And so that was really weird because that scene, especially when I show Matt with his family at the beach, and someone gets sick and they're like, oh, this is that pandemic we heard about, that felt very much like it was coming from real life. And it felt extra heart-wrenching to be writing something that I felt like we could be actually seeing now.
Yeah, and definitely, and people with masks and just the whole people freaking out. If someone's sick, I mean, there's that real fear, and I'm sure life has kind of offered some good examples of things that maybe you didn't experience, consider that we could encounter in a pandemic like situation, and it does really resonate in the pages. It's really impressive. And let's talk about issue 4. This is the one coming to Kickstarter February 2nd. Your creative team, you're once again teamed with Mariana Strakowski on artwork, correct? Who's
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about her and what she really brings to the series for you.
She's been with me from the very beginning, from when I initially was just trying to do a couple of pages at a time, when I was still learning about the medium as a whole and how to even just make a comic book. I thought at first I could just do 5 pages and find a publisher, and then I realized I needed
Right.
to like actually fund the entire first issue, which, luckily at the time I was working 2 different jobs at the same time. I was on The Good Wife and Brain Dead. And so having that double salary was what enabled me to pay to make the first issue. So Mariana actually came to me through a contact of Ryland's. Ryland and I had gone through this comic book writing class at Meltdown Comics. And so when he knew I was looking for an artist, he hooked me up with this guy named Carol, who knew Mariana. She was like, I want to say fresh out of school at that point. And so he hooked me up with her, and she just immediately got the world. I gave her a test page to do, which I don't want to spoil what that page was, because it would definitely be a spoiler if you haven't read the first issue, but she just nailed it, because it was this really emotional scene. And because my comic isn't super action heavy, I needed someone who could get the emotions I was trying to get across in people's faces and body language, and she just completely nailed it. And she gets it every time. Like, I can throw anything at her and she just brings it to vibrant, beautiful life.
Oh, that's great having that kind of relationship and that kind of connection with your illustrator. That just makes the process a whole lot easier. Now, in this 4th issue, are you returning with either? I think Josh Reed was on your first issue and Carlos Mangual on the subsequent issues. Are you teaming back up with either of them?
So Josh only did the first issue because right while he was lettering my first issue, he got hired by DC.
Okay.
And DC doesn't allow them to work on outside projects. So he actually hooked me up with Carlos, because they used to work together at DC. So by the time, there was a bit of a lag between 1 and 2 for me, just because I didn't have the finances for it off the bat. And so Carlos had gone freelance at that point, and that's how I got hooked up with Carlos. So Carlos has done the lettering on everything. He even did the lettering for me on The Hotel, which was that short comic I did for David Schrader and Clay Adams' horror anthology.
The Nightmare Theater anthology or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have Carlos. I'm having an illustrator work on a children's picture book that I'm doing, and Carlos is gonna do the lettering and the production work for me on that as well.
Very nice, very nice. And for cover work on this, will Leila Del Duca and Owen Gianni be return?
Yes, they actually already did the cover, and it looks amazing. I'm very happy. They're great collaborators, and Leila was another kind of like a connection person. So to go back to Josh, I met him through Vince Hernandez, who's the CEO at Aspen, the editor-in-chief at Aspen Comics, and I had just kind of like jumped on him after a panel one day that he had been on to get his input. That was before I had even hired an art team at this point for the first issue, and he was just amazing. He kind of like walked me through the process and helped me out, and he's the one who hooked me up with Josh, because Josh did the lettering for Aspen. And then Leila, my friend Him Kartak, who has a book coming out with Scout soon, we had met through a nonprofit I had created like years and years ago in conjunction with the mom of one of my friends who had passed away. he was a writer director for film. And so Himkar had won one of the grants we had awarded. And then he got into comic books, and he had Layla do a cover for his comic book Boy One. So when I was looking for a cover artist, he hooked me up with her.
Okay, you know what? And that's a lot of this industry is. It's
All
getting
connections.
connected through, yeah, and especially, you know, you start working on things like anthologies where it's multiple creators, and yeah, you're really able to network well. Vince Hernandez was the editor on your first issue, correct?
He was the editor on the first issue. Yeah,
Okay.
he was just such an invaluable help to me, especially because like at the time, here I am, I'm just this person who's never written a comic book before. At that point, all I had was my credit on Suits. I had written an episode of the TV show Suits, and he just was willing to take a chance on me and read the script for the comic book and just help me out. So
Yeah.
I don't know that the first issue ever would have been completed if it hadn't been for his help.
Great editor, great writer as well. I mean, with stuff at Aspen, and I know he took over the Zombie Tramp title at Action Lab. Yeah, great guy too. Just all those guys at Aspen are wonderful. Hey,
Yeah, no,
speaking about publishers, how does Second Sight Publishing play a role with your series? Will they be printing and releasing through the direct market with each issue? Are they involved in your upcoming Kickstarter in any way?
So they recently got into Diamond. So the first issue of Duplicant will be in previews in February and will be hitting stores in April. And then we're going to do a bi-monthly release for the first arc, which will be the first 5 issues. And I believe they're also trying to get into like bookstores once we do the trade paperback for the first 5 issues, like Barnes and Noble and things like that. They're also going to be in Comixology. But yeah, Diamond it was the big get that they got into, so we're excited about that.
Awesome. So, uh, issue 5, after this upcoming crowdfunding, you'll crowdfund that as well, and then they'll lead into the distribution of printed copies and into the book market is the goal with Second Sight.
Fingers crossed. But
Okay,
yes.
definitely. No. In your previous campaigns, you offered backers the opportunity to snag past as well as the current issue. What would this latest Kickstarter offer for both fans since the beginning and for new readers alike?
So I have Don, who does Pablo the Gorilla. He did a bunch of original art pieces for me that are going to be at a tier for like people who've never bought the book before. They'll get all the issues and they'll get all of the stretch goals from previously. So all of the postcards we did, the bookmarks, all of that stuff in addition to the original art. We'll have the cameos again. And then I have another artist. She did my artwork on the hotel. We're just trying to work out the timing, but I'm hoping to have 2 more original pieces from her to sell with the campaign. And then Mariah Terry, who is my illustrator on my kids' book, is going to work on some trading cards to do as a stretch goal if we get to that. And we also have, if we, you know, hopefully not good, we get to our stretch goals, we have a sticker sheet that Mariana created that we're hoping to do for everyone as well.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, no, yeah, I think I saw Don Wynn had a contribution, I think at the back of issue 2, I think on additional.
He did an
digital.
awesome piece of fan art.
Okay.
Yeah, and I got, well, actually, you know what, let me grab those postcards. Yeah, so he did this postcard.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Which was stretch goal to do it as a postcard, but then I also included in the back of the book. And then this is Anemone, who did the hotel, and she's the one if the timing works out with her schedule, to do a couple of original pieces as well for the campaign.
Now's the part of the show where we let you pitch your project. It's your opportunity to reach out to potential backers as well as returning fans as to why Duplicant is the Kickstarter campaign to jump aboard and keep on the radar. So, Karla Nappi, pitch your project.
So Duplicant is a comic book series that I created that I'm really proud of because we've had to overcome a bunch of hurdles over the years to get it to this point. And so despite everything, despite an actual pandemic and moving across country and financial issues, I've been able to bring this project to life. And that is all down to the Kickstarter backers who have been super generous and awesome and funded this project. I always try to make sure that my backers feel like they're getting personal attention from me. So when the post office was having issues sending items and it took over almost 2 months for some people to get their books, I actually had artists create special art just for my backers as like a thank you for waiting for their books to come in. So I just always want backers to know that I'm here for them if they have any questions about the product. And then the book itself is something I'm really proud of. I have a great team that brings it to life. And the upcoming issue is going to be following Matt as he gets this bombshell revelation that kind of changes the track of where he's going to figure out what has happened to his tech. Robert, who's the head of the black market, has a crisis of faith. And Ava continues her hunt for who the mole is in the company.
And so this is the penultimate issue of the first story arc, correct?
Yes. Yep. Exactly.
Awesome. There you have it, folks. From the creator and originator herself. Be sure to check out Duplicant #4 when it comes to Kickstarter on February 2nd and back this project. You can already count me in ahead of time, Karla.
Oh,
Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me, and best of luck and much success with your latest offer.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me on.